Good evening everybody and welcome to the OniOfTaint channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Five Nights at Freddy's 4. You may notice that this is a new sort of format to a video that I've yet to do. This is like with my other videos, this is mostly going to be me speaking, but also I'm going to be using some images and such of what I found and what I believe to be the cause, or rather what my personal take on this whole Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is. Now, to anyone who listens to the Insight to Insanity podcast with me and Nylan, a link to which will be in the description below, I highly urge you to have a listen. It's great fun to record, it's great fun to just talk random shit with Nylan and such, and we do go into some details on Five Nights at Freddy's and such, but mostly of how we would change the game. But this isn't about us. Tonight, this is about Five Nights at Freddy's 4. The teaser images of such, from what I have seen, have been Freddy and who I can only assume to be Bonnie. Now, personally, for me, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that Scott Cawthon has said openly that Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has been confirmed and it will be coming out in Halloween. Now, before anyone jumps on the train to say that I am merely a hater and I'm hating on this series, I am not. I like the series. Its simplistic gameplay and the mystery behind it is all well and good. The stories can drag you in if you're interested in such, which it did for me. The reason I don't like the fact that Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has been confirmed is for this one reason. Well, I wouldn't really say this one reason, but this is the biggie. At the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 3, whether you did all the minigames or not, you got an ending. It said either the good end, it said either the end or the bad end. That, to me, felt like more of a climactic ending than either of the two that came before. Because at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you got a slip for your paycheck. You got a paycheck at the end of the week, and you did the overtime paycheck on night 6, and if you did night 7, you got your pig slip to say you've been fired. That was not the case for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, as you got the ending, you got the heads, and you got the newspaper clipping saying that it had been burnt to the ground. This, to me, felt like a good way to end the series of Five Nights at Freddy's. And another point I will bring up, and I'm gonna bring up right now, and you should see an overlay picture now over this audio. This is the first time I've attempted anything like this, so it might be wrong. But you should see a picture of Springtrap, or otherwise known as the purple guy. This, to me, was like the big reveal. Here's the enemy that we've been talking about, referencing in 1 and 2. Here's the purple guy, he is Springtrap. And that was revealed through the minigames of FNAF 3. You learned it yourself. You learned the ultimate fate of the purple guy, that he was in Springtrap, and he supposedly died, or he somehow kept himself alive, and was able to manipulate the suit. This, to me, felt like a good ending. We've had the big reveal of the villain, we know what happened to him, and for all intents and purposes, he burned down. But as people have said, if you enhance the image of that newspaper clipping, you can see Springtrap in the background. So for all that we know, Springtrap is still very much going around, and he is still very much out there. But whether or not he's out there, or he got killed again, I should say, in the fire, it really does make me feel that this was the ending. This was going to be the end. It had a climactic ending, and I'll admit it left many things unanswered. It left many things on a cliffhanger. But that to me would have been good, because that would have kept the community involved, that would have kept people debating of it, and it would have kept FNAF circling around. And now all of a sudden we've got these new teaser images, the first of which you should be seeing now, showing Freddy, or Fredbear as people are assuming him to be, who, if you don't know, was the original Freddy animatronic before Fazbear. And this to me, it looks like a good picture. It's a good picture. It's very red oriented. It's a very aggressive picture, I guess you could say. It's a very intense and vibrant red, a very aggressive red. Now, the second teaser image, I should say, you should be seeing now, and it is a calmer blue color. It's still a vibrant blue, but if we're going by the emotional spectrum, you've got red, which means rage, and then you've got blue, which means calm, collective. It's the opposite of almost. And another thing that irritates me about this is because in the image of the second image, you can see Bonnie, or who I assume to be Bonnie, it's probably a different version of Bonnie, saying, "Was it me?" Now, to me, this means that there's probably someone behind the scenes who's been pulling the triggers and pulling the strings all along, which to me, I don't really feel like the game's lore has been set up accordingly for this, because we've only heard of the purple guy, we've only heard of the one murder, we haven't heard of anything else, but in theory, I guess you could say that there is someone connected to him. And another point as well, we're just going to switch back to the original image here. This Freddy is roundabout as worn as Springtrap was. However, when Fazbear took over, from what I understand, they only had the two suits. They had the two Springlock suits, which showed Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie, otherwise known as Springtrap. And these suits are what were locked away. If you notice, because of the intense coloring of the red, it does make this Freddy look quite a lot like the other versions with a brown coloring. But I watch this YouTube channel called 8-Bit Gaming. They make some good points, I'll admit, they make some good points. And one of the points they made was if you downgrade the red, if you get to a point where it's not as vibrant as such, it's going to look, he's going to look a similar color to Springtrap, with a similar golden hue, or a rather greenish, yellowish hue, which I can understand, but my point to that is you are turning down the color of the image. So even if the vibrant red is changing the color of the suit, turning it down is only really gonna, sorry if I hit my microphone there, it's only really gonna make the image darker, and yes, you are gonna end up with a brownish coloring, or close to Springtrap. Now, my main question here is, if this is indeed Fredbear, if this is indeed the original suit, then where has he been for the past 30 to 50 years? I don't know how long the timeline's been going on for, and I'd say 30 to 50 is round about a good estimate, because we know that FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after the original, considering number 2 is a prequel. So for around about 30 to 50 years, well, 50 to 30 years I guess you could say, he has been hiding. He has been hidden. This original suit has been somewhere. I don't know where. Don't know where it's gone. We don't know who had him, and we don't know for what purpose. It could be that the purchasers who've changed Fredbear into Fazbear, they probably kept the suit, so I don't know what Scott intends to do with this. But ultimately, the Bite of 87 as well is something that's been I'm sorry, I'm tired. The Bite of 87 is something that's been brought up a fair bit in theories about this, and I want to get my take on this. The Bite of 87, I've discussed this with multiple people, and originally it was thought to be Foxy who did it, because he's got the most he's got the teeth that would likely do it. And then we move on to the prequel, who back when it first came out, and a little bit after that, people were rage debating over whether it was a prequel or a sequel. Disconnecting from that, we were introduced to the toy animatronics and the withered animatronics, the withered version of the originals, which is what a lot of people said it was a sequel. But we also got introduced to a unique character in my mind, known as Mangle. And Mangle is sort of like the kid version of Foxy, who has been torn apart and put back together so many times that she's been nicknamed Mangle. And ultimately I'm just gonna call Mangle a she. I don't know why. I feel like it's a she. Or at least it's designed to be a she. And over the phone calls that the phone guy sends to you, I don't have them here, so I do apologize for that. But the phone guy says that someone has been tampering with the animatronics and that the place has been shut down. Now, to me, this could not happen to the originals, because the originals were scrapped. Well, I say they were scrapped. They were in the parts and they were only used for spare parts. And even if the original Foxy was tampered with, and he is known to walk about and such, he would not, in my mind, have the time or the capacity to do it, considering of how withered he is. Mangle, on the other hand, we know is around young children. We know is around toddlers, almost. I'm guessing it's around about toddlers, considering it's Kids Cove. And you can sort of follow my line of thought here, is because if Mangle's the one that's been tampered with, if they've all been tampered with, and Mangle has been tampered with in such a way, when the toddlers come to take her apart, she doesn't recognize them, and in her unstable state, I guess you could say, she ends up snapping and taking a bite out of one of them, taking off the frontal lobe, which results in the closure of the prequel establishment. And in my mind, this, I wouldn't say it's confirmed, because nothing has been confirmed about the bite of 87 yet. But this, to me, is supported with evidence, because in the original, in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, which is now being confirmed to be the sequel, it's, you know what I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, prequel, brain not working, I apologize. We know that the toy versions are not there, they were scrapped, and that the original versions were going to be repaired, which is why in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, the originals are there and the toy versions aren't, because they've been scrapped. Now, in my mind, why would the toy versions be scrapped when they are more advanced, they've got higher mobility, and they've even got the scanner to detect predators? Why would the Fazbear operators, why would the owners of the company discontinue these upgraded animatronics in favor of the originals? And in my mind, this supports Mangle as the most likely candidate to commit the bite of 87, due to the fact that she's not there. And had it been Foxy, or had it been one of the originals, then the originals would have been scrapped. They would not have kept, logically speaking, they would not have kept them around. And if it wasn't the toy versions, then something must have happened to cause them to be scrapped. Otherwise, they would have been repaired like the originals. And then we move on to Five Nights at Freddy's 3, where we get first introduced to Springtrap, and we hear some of the old training tapes from the first Fazbear establishment, not the Family Diner. Remember, it went from Fazbear Family Diner, no, it went from Fredbear Family Diner to Fazbear Entertainment. And the original establishment is where the Springlock suits came into effect, which is how Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie, otherwise known as Springtrap, came into this. And you can tell, if looking at the coloring of the first image, which should still be here. I might put in some images of like Mangle and the originals and such, just so you can get a feel for the characters. I want to try and make this video as entertaining as possible, but it is dragging along a bit, so I'm going to end this in a moment. And if you look at Springtrap, you can see he's got 4 fingers and a thumb, meaning that it is possible for someone to wear his hand. This is backed up by evidence from the phone guy saying that these Springlock suits have a crank mechanism of where you can push the mechanisms aside, lock them in place with a spring lock, and you can enter the suit. This, in my mind, shows that only 2 suits have this capacity, because there was only really 2 Springlock suits, Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie, aka Springtrap. But returning to the original image now, you can see that Fredbear, as many people are calling him, does indeed have 4 fingers. It's a little bit hidden, but it is indeed there. The ring finger is indeed there, holding up the top hat as well. So, in all plausibility, this means that someone could wear his suit as well. And if you go to the second image, which should be popping up now as well, you can see that Bonnie also has the 4 fingers. So, I don't know if this other version of Bonnie is like a model based on Springtrap, or it's a different version of Springtrap, which in my mind would make no sense. But I honestly don't really like how Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has been confirmed, and these teaser images are showing. And while I like the series as a whole, my main issue is I feel like it's got to the point now where it's starting to become a little bit of a cash grab. It's starting to feel like Scott is milking it, if you know what I mean. And I apologize if I'm offending anyone, but this is my own opinion here. Everyone's entitled to it. This, to me, is starting to feel a little bit like a cash grab. And I feel that way due to what I've said, because we got a climactic ending at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 3. We got evidence to support that Mangle, or at least one of the Tory versions, was responsible for the bite of 87. And yes, there were still things that people were going to want to know, and that, in my mind, would have been better left on a cliffhanger. Now, if my final point here, because this is going to get on for 20 minutes, and I don't want to ramble for 20 minutes. If these suits aren't Springtrap, if this new version of Bonnie or whatever isn't Springtrap, then my question would be, is someone wearing the suits? Because we know people can step inside them, and we know it's possible for them to wear the Springlock suits. And it is entirely possible that Fredbear was a suit that could be worn, and not just an animatronic. So, here's my closing statements, because I am tired and I don't want to ramble on anymore. Do you agree with my opinion saying that they should have ended Five Nights at Freddy's at the 3rd game when we got the climactic ending, or do you agree with Nyland's point of view from the podcast, saying that it should have ended right at the end of the 1st game? Do you agree or do you disagree? I would like to hear other people's opinions on this, and I would like to hear their evidence for their opinions. I would like to debate this. I would honestly like to debate this with other people to see their own views on this. But ultimately, I do believe that it is a mistake to go for Five Nights at Freddy's 4. I don't know what the game will entail, but I'll be keeping a close eye on it, and if people like this video, I'll try and do another one of a similar format for probably a different game, probably another Five Nights at Freddy's, just to keep it in the loop almost. Anyway, getting close to that 20-minute limit, this has been OniOfTaint. This has been my weird format video for my opinions on Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Hope you all enjoyed. As always, comment down below your opinions. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I don't often tell you people to like and subscribe because I feel like they should do it on their own if they want to. I don't really mind. But anyway, this has been OniOfTaint, and as always, take care and sayonara.